A warm welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. It's Wednesday afternoon, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Patrick McGilp and standing in for John Yogi Hughes. If that's possible, we have Brian Degnan. Brian, welcome to the show, mate. How are you?
I'm tremendous, mate. It's good to be back on. So big shoes to fill, literally and figuratively, stepping in for Big John. But hopefully the beard will make up some disappointment for the viewers.
Do you have the testicular fortitude to step
I
in
don't
for
know.
Big
I
Yogi?
don't know. I've been told I talk a lot of balls, so maybe that accounts for something.
Brilliant. By the way, Brian, I've got to say, at the weekend, I was down. I'm going to say your neck of the woods. I know you don't live in Ascot, but I was down there for the old Jimmy Johnston tournament, and Shamrock CSC, Swindon CSC, were, I think, reigning champions, Brian.
Yeah,
Reigning
that's true.
champions. They were knocked off their perch, mate. You want to talk us through that?
Yeah, sadly we never quite retained the trophy, but it was a good effort for the boys. I never played, which was good because that gave them at least a chance of winning. Because I'm well quoted as being absolutely rotten at football, despite my passion for it, which apparently is a very Scottish thing these days. So, yeah, no, listen, a brilliant tournament though. It was great to have you down, Paul, and I think everyone had a great time. And it's for such a good cause. So it's a really good event, and it just shows you like it's always that extension of the charitable aspect of Celtic and that community thing, and these people coming together from all over the place. So a brilliant day. Everyone had good fun, and I believe you met the chairman as well, ex London player.
I
Is the
did.
chairman Big Marshy? Shout out to you, Marshy. So yeah, great guys and great club, and it was good to have everyone down. Brilliant tournament.
Yes, I did meet Marshy. I was meaning to get a few words from him for my wee video clip that will be on the channel very, very soon. And he was telling me that he did play for Swindon back in the day, and it was at the same time as Paul Caddis, Simon Ferry, and a certain Paolo Di Canio was in the building as well. So I'm sure he's got a few tales to tell. It's refreshing, Patrick, is it not, when somebody comes on and says, I'm rotten at football? Because everybody I talk about would have made it if it wasn't for that, troublesome itch in the nether regions or something, some kind of reason. Oh, I had trials for Blythe Spartans. I would have made it if it wasn't for that dodgy ankle. Come on, just admit it. You weren't good enough, lads.
Well, I'm going to join that club because I also was nowhere near good enough to make it professionally. I didn't, I didn't kick a ball until I was about 12, so by that time the chance I think had already gone. But no, was and still am a shocking footballer, so I'll join that club. Um, but no, it's good to be on. It's good to see you, Brian. Whether you can fill Yogi's shoes of talking for 58 minutes out of 60, big shoes to fill. But if you get a rant or two in there, then I'm sure you'll manage just fine. But
Yeah.
no, it's good to be back on. Obviously, the season pretty much kicks off on Friday night down at Ayr against Brunies Ayr United. So looking forward to watching Celtic again.
There is that, Patrick, right? But I'm going to throw it out there early doors because we're going to focus on this. And I think there are answers a multitude of questions. The tagline states, what's the mood 3 weeks into the transfer window and only 2 days away from the first game? I know that I've actually chucked in a few extra words, but you are limited when you're writing a title. There's only so many characters you can put in there. But the reason I'm going to run with this is I'm going to ask the guys to have a wee think and use in the comments as well. Thank you, every single one of you, for joining us. Give me your starting 11 for Friday night. Right now, we've got to take into account the fact that those players who were involved in the Euros will still be on holiday. There are some players still involved in the Copa America, and also anybody else involved won't be back. And if you think also about the fact that Maeda was involved in international duties, that was probably the reason why we didn't see him in the montage that was put out by Celtic for the first training session. So let's have a serious consideration about the starting 11, right? And when you think, and we'll get to it, when you think you're right back, for example, all right, first choice is Johnson, second choice is Ralston. Who plays right back? You then go to left back, first choice is Taylor. After that, Bernaby's somewhere on a beach in Brazil. So, yeah, we're going to be speaking about that and the fact that also we've lost a few. Joe Hart, of course, Adam Ida, Paulo Bernardo, and then there's some of the surplus to requirements players like Haksabanovic, who have also left the building. That's going to be a tricky one, Brian. We're going to dig into the starting 11 for Friday. But give me, generally speaking, your view on how things are at this moment in time, 3 weeks in and a couple of days away from our first friendly.
Yeah, it's the last time I was on actually, which was a couple of weeks ago. I'd said that people seem fairly calm towards this transfer window at this stage. I'm detecting now a bit, less patience, and I think it's just the problem is we've been linked with so many players for so long, and we felt that we knew Joe Hart was retiring, so we think get the wheels in motion. He said he's retiring months ago. There's nobody in the building yet. That sort of stuff you go, oh, is this going to be a flashback? Because we've kind of been sold without them directly saying it. This is almost a new era. Brendan's in charge, new recruitment team. It's his players. They want more experience, less projects. It's a whole new start. We're getting this with a different strategy. But still no sign, Andy. Still no sure about things. Still rumours that we're penny pinching over Bernardo's wages. There's still quite a few things that I'm getting a wee bit worried about. The fact the club did a survey was a bit strange, but I suppose we're going to get to that later. So I'm getting, as long as we get the right players in, I'll feel fine. But I wanted them in early. I wanted to see a point of difference right at the start of this transfer window. Something akin to sort of Angie's second transfer window, where we had the players in day one. I wanted to see that type of statement where we go, right, we're ready here, lads, we're good to go, we're powering through, this is what we're doing. In terms of the players that are likely to feature, you've got to think guys like Lawal will start. McCarthy will probably start just because there's not many people there. Home, maybe he's kicking about. And then the rest, it's going to have to be kids. And it's Stephen Welsh, Scott Bain, Stephen Welsh, and then Joey Dawson up front. It's interesting to see. I mean, look, we know it's the pre-season's just about getting a view of what the players are going to be like, giving some players a chance that they might not get when the season starts proper. So I always think they're good watches, but I think you have to be cautious how much you dive into them, because it literally is a training session, a glorified training session. So you've got to put that in the back of your head as well.
It's exactly that, Brian. It's a training session, and if you're able to help out Bruni and Ayr United in opening the new stand, then great stuff. But it's a bounce game for that purpose. I think we will run through the starting 11 as we go through the show. I'm going to come over to yourself as well, Patrick, just to ask about your own mood. It's kind of like a weekly checkup. It's a wellness check. I want to make sure you're all right, mate. How are you feeling at this stage of the game?
I've been saying the last few weeks, maybe a week or two into July, I'd like to see us get at least one signing in the door. I've sort of been counting up the days since Joe Hart retired. I think we're now on 132 since he announced his retirement on the 22nd of February. Get 76 days until the first Champions League match day. So, the days are sort of marching on. But with the Euros, with players off on their sort of 3-4 week holiday, staff off on their 3 or 4 week holiday, Brendan wasn't in that training video, but I think John Kennedy was. You imagine the sort of sports science, analysis, scouts, these guys will be back. Negotiations you'd like to think would be underway for players. So with guys coming back from the Euros and stuff as well, I'd like to think that by the middle of July, we'll get a signing or two in the door, because we really should have had these guys lined up. I mean, Taylor's good and he adds balance and he's been reliable in most games this season when available. But I think it's one of the positions you think you can definitely get an upgrade, and I think we've known that for a good few years now.
Yeah.
Scales, second half of the season was pretty poor, and I think it's quite obvious we could do with an upgrade in that position. And then obviously Joe Hart's retired, so we definitely need a player in that position. You then look at O'Reilly in the midfield. You look at where can we improve. We need that second striker now that O and Ida certainly aren't in the building at the moment. O will be leaving and Ida might not be coming back. So there's quite a number of positions that need filled. I'd like to think we've got enough in the squad to beat Kilmarnock on the 4th of August, even with Scales and Taylor. But going into those Champions League games, we need to dramatically improve the starting 11, in my opinion, and we need 4 or 5 players. And come the sort of second or third week of July, I'd like to have at least a goalkeeper, if not a centre half as well, because it is getting to that tetchy stage, as Brian said. We've been relatively calm until now because it is June, but we're now into July, and you think, well, we've not even had anything concrete. There's no one sort of jetting into Glasgow Airport for crunch talks. So, I think, in the next week or two, I'd like to see something over the line.
Well, how many days did you say until the first Champions League game, Patrick?
76.
76 days. Right, okay. Well, I remember a few years back, JP Mason on the Thursday Bulletin counted down the days to the first fixture. And that was because, obviously, of the mess we were in at that time. It was Midtjylland. That was the first fixture in the Champions League under Ange. And there was a big countdown, and those days disappeared pretty rapidly. And I'm saying 2 days before a bounce game. Let's focus on the 76 days before the first Champions League game. And when we talk through the team, the predicted 11, let's just say, for Ayr United on Friday night, with the caveat in each position as to he would have been playing, but he's been on international duty, etc., then I think it will, it will get to that point where you're thinking a lot of business has to be done in a short space of time. Brendan Rodgers wasn't at the first training camp. I'm glad he wasn't, Brian, because it means he's busy. The word is that him, the head of scouting, and Michael Nicholson are busy doing plenty of deals, hunters of deals, to quote a great man. But before we delve into the team on Friday night, there's a few other talking points. The first one being, of course, Matt O'Reilly. Matt O'Reilly's been the subject of conversation and discussion and debate over the last probably het up since January, since we heard about Atletico Madrid. He's just had the best season in his senior football career, and what a sensational season it was. And obviously there's the reported interest from Southampton. Paper talk, 20 million, all this kind of stuff. Come back when you've got some serious discussions to be had, Brian. We're not even going to enter the discussion if that's what they're talking about, 20 million quid, is it?
Surely not. I mean, I think that the rumours suggested Celtic slapped a sort of minimum 30 to 35 million on him, and I think that's more appropriate, especially if you look at the sort of transfers that have happened so far, for squad players or for, guys for the Championship in England. Some of the money going about football now is frightening. And Scottish football in general, not just Celtic, we need to stop undervaluing players. There's a reason these guys are, big clubs are coming in for them. It's because they benchmark alongside. So if Atletico Madrid signing a centre mid, right, they're going to have certain benchmarks to meet. And that'll be guys maybe that are in the Premier League or guys that are in La Liga or wherever else. And they're going to cost them a lot of money, but they'll pay it because of the benchmarkers, because of these things. Matt O'Reilly clearly makes them. Are they very interested? So if he makes them and he's good enough to play for them, then we've got to be saying, right, well, that's the market value. I think what we have to hope is, and I'm not going to say hope we stay because I think he's probably off. If I'm honest, I don't think there's much doubt about that now. And goes with best wishes, to be fair. But I think that you almost have to hope there's a number of clubs coming for him so that they can kind of get to the point where somebody will just take 35. Now, are we going to get 35? I'm not sure, but we can't take 20 or 25. We just can. Like, I know Kieran Tierney was the sort of benchmark. I know he's got to get 25. But in today's market, the values are getting up and up, and we need to keep up with that, because what happens then is if he's your best player, and he probably is, and we let him go for that, that means that's it. So no matter how good a player we get, how good a season they have, that's the ceiling then. So we've got to keep that increasing. So it's really important he goes for a lot of money.
I agree with that. But again, I've not written off the slim possibility of him staying. I think that, when you're looking at the progress, the trajectory of his career, another season, another 8 Champions League games might be part of that plan. And if it is, then all's the better, and we can start actually building around the top class player that he undoubtedly is. Patrick, I look at the interest in January. Atletico Madrid, apparently come February, Fenerbahce were interested as well. Southampton are the name that's getting used in the headlines, etc. at the moment. There are going to be more than a couple of teams interested in a player like Matt O'Reilly, surely.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. You can sort of create that bidding war. Certainly with the two signings in the past that have went for record fees, Jota and Tierney. Arsenal were always the side that Tierney was going to go to. I know there was sort of rumblings about maybe Dortmund or some other European side, but Arsenal were always top contenders, and it was just about them matching the £25 million valuation. Jota sort of came out of nowhere. I mean, that happened within the space of a few days, I believe, half a week or something. And all of a sudden he was off. So, hopefully there's many different suitors for O'Reilly. I totally agree with Brian, though. I mean, we cannot set the ceiling for ourselves going forward. Tierney was 5 years ago, and O'Reilly, he's up there as one of our top goal scorers this season. Under Ange, he was absolutely phenomenal. He had a great engine in terms of pressing the ball. He was up there with Kyogo half the time, helping us pin back Real Madrid. And Leipzig and Shakhtar in the Champions League games, and obviously didn't score until January of that season, but just a fantastic professional, and obviously now added goals to his game. He's got 3 assists in the Champions League this season in 6 games, so no mean feat. So I think he's worth. I know people made the sort of Archie Gray comparison yesterday. I think it's a 19-year-old who just happens to be a big Celtic fan. Has went for something like 30 to 40 million to Tottenham. Now, that guy might end up being a brilliant player. He might be, one of the next best players in the world. But at the same time, this is a guy who's got 2 seasons under his belt and has only played a handful of games, and he's going for 40 million. So Matt O'Reilly, with his proven track record over the last 2.5 seasons, I think it's totally fair to be asking for 30 million plus. We need to get over the 25 million ceiling. 25 million is obviously brilliant for a Scottish side, but from what we've got in the past and what we're losing from our team going into another Champions League campaign, what we'll need to replace O'Reilly with, I'd be looking for at least 30 million. And there's no, Atletico Madrid probably still are the most likely in my opinion, but I don't think there's a standout club at the moment. There's nothing solid yet, like there was with Kieran Tierney. So hopefully a bidding war can ensue and we can get a wee bit more than 30.
If it has to happen
as well. Sorry, Paul, just about Matt O'Reilly is if you look at player profiles, like he's tall, strong, can press, can defend, can attack. He's young, like he fits right into these top sides, like whether it's La Liga, whether it's the Premier League. Whereas you look at a guy like Kyogo, who you can say is one of our best players' best assets. You never want to get that money for him because he's smaller, he's older, I might not fit every league. He's still good money if he was to go. And I'm not trying to flog him, but the point being that O'Reilly's player profile fits in the upper tier of players that are going to be signed. So it's not just a case of you're saying, well, he's our best player, he should go for that amount of money. It's the fact that he's a player that suits the top level of football in terms of his physicality, his technique on the ball, and his age, and his experience as well, remember. Full international, played Champions League football, winner, got that winning mentality and that physicality. It's easy sell for 35 million, I think, for these clubs. And that's why I think it's really important that if or when he goes, we get that money, but also, and I think me and Al Morrison have ranted about this a few times, we need to get the right type of player to replace him that can also match that sort of dynamic way of playing, or else we're going to get flattened into the Champions League again.
You're right. He's the exact kind of mould of a player that we would be looking for if we thought, right, tell me what you're looking for in the midfield to go into the Champions League. We've already got it. It's Matt O'Reilly. You're spot on. Going back to one of the points that Patrick made earlier, I love when players come out and say, oh, by the way, I'm Celtic daft. I absolutely love it. They're the only club I ever wanted to play for. The Roy Keane one recently, Real Madrid, 18 months, I'm going to Celtic Park. Wayne Rooney, out for a wee wander with Gary Neville. They nicked that off their wander in paradise, maybe the other way about. And Wayne Rooney says, Celtic's the team I regret not playing for. And then, of course, I actually agree with all his contacts and connections to Celtic through his family as well. The Gray brothers, I am told, before my time, Castle Milk boys, played for Leeds and would have been great Celtic players, but unfortunately it did not happen. But you're right, if that's your benchmark, if you're buying a player to fit into your start 11 in the English Premiership and you think that he's a starter, then let's talk sense. Let's not talk about £20 million. Always like to qualify this. I don't want him to leave. I think we do everything in our power to keep him, build a team around him, and keep him for another season. Yes, and I know underneath that there is a footnote saying, remember all those players who were unhappy and didn't perform as a result of that. Totally get it. If the player says, listen, I want to leave, then you make all the efforts to make that transition smooth. But the club has to get the right money for him. Now, those who watch this show on a regular might realise and appreciate that I'm a lover of the old football jersey. I do love a football jersey from time to time. And obviously, there has been some images flying about. Let's have a wee look at the images. Some images flying about online this morning. Now, when it comes to things like talking about sources and all this kind of stuff around transfers, you trust certain sources, you don't trust others. When it comes to football jerseys, I've got to say, footyheadlines.com are often on they get the nail on the head, don't they? I've looked at this website numerous times for launches of jerseys, maybe over the last 20 years, to try and figure out what they were being sold off the back of. And obviously, we've had stained glass windows. We've had the steel erections on the outside of Celtic Park making appearances on jerseys. And I've said, coming into the new season, wouldn't it be great, Patrick, just to get a yellow away top again? Because, I'm brought up in the tradition of the centenary season. And I remember the great side of the centenary year wearing a yellow away top. This has dropped. I don't know if it's genuine, but as I say, I tend to trust footy headlines. I just wanted to know what your view on that is, Patrick.
Yeah, I'd quite like a yellow away top again. As you say, they're always quite nice. I think it's been a few years since we've had one. I like on this particular image, I quite like the badge, the four-leaf clover. I think it's a bit of a throwback, a sort of historical reference. The Adidas sort of logo. I've seen a few images, and the logo is getting a bit bigger. The Adidas logo, which I don't quite like, but it seems a good size on there. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm a fan. I'm not a massive one for buying tops. I'll buy one every couple of years if it's a belter. But no, I'd quite like to see either a yellow or a black away top. I quite like the black one from the 2012-2013 season. I think we won the Scottish Cup final. Just imagine Samaras wearing it. But no, I think another yellow away top would be quite nice. And hopefully we can have a successful season wearing it, because I quite liked the COVID season jerseys, and I just can't bear to look at them again because of the season that we had. So it's important to have a good season as well. But no, quite a big fan of yellow away tops. So hopefully it'll be something like this.
You're right. The COVID season. I've never gone back to listen to any of the episodes during that campaign. Maybe someday I will. There might be some nuggets in there, Brian, and I don't mean the contributors. But the jersey can be a line to success. It absolutely can be a line to success because, as Patrick says, the jerseys in the COVID season were cracking. See, when you look through the kind of the long line of jerseys we've got, you look at them, you think they're smashing, but you don't have any good memories wearing them. I'm looking at this one. I do like it. There's a few Norwich City jerseys of the last few years that I thought, if that was a Celtic jersey, it would be brilliant. Pinstripes. They've gone for the horizontal stripes. I do like it. I like the crest. It's as close to a big shamrock as we're ever going to get, harking back to the jersey for the 50s and 60s. But I also agree with you on the Adidas equipment logo. It's growing. It's getting bigger and bigger. And to the point where it's like, right, we get it. It's an Adidas jersey, right? But give me the trefoil any day of the week. Give me the three stripes right down the sleeves any day of the week. Get back to the classics. But as far as jerseys go, Brian, I'm liking it.
I think it's okay. I'm actually not a big fan of that one. However, I think the home top this season's a belter. And like Patrick, I don't actually tend to. It has to be something quite interesting for me to buy it. I don't buy a lot of jerseys. But I absolutely love the home one, so I bought that, and I actually really like the training stuff this year. So I bought one of the polos and one of the t-shirts, which is a bit of rarity. But I just thought they're really class. I think it's the best collection Adidas have done, I think, so far. What I really want, my favourite ever away top was, I think it was 2004-05, and it was the black with the collar and the gold piping.
Yeah.
I just always picture Larson running in it. It's an absolute belter. It's my favourite ever Celtic jersey, actually. And I really hope to do something like that again. I miss a wee collar, because I always think players are a bit gallus when they've got the collar up. Do you know what I mean?
Cantona-esque.
Long sleeves and the collar up. I quite like that. So I would like to see that. But listen, it's one of those ones where I remember seeing images of the leaked images of this season's top and no liking it at first. And then I saw it on when they advertised it on the mannequins. I was like, wow, so that's a cracker. And I actually really like it on. So we'll we'll see what the third kit looks like, and then the fourth kit, and then the fifth kit, and then the anniversary kit, and then the Irish Heritage kit, and then we're at the Euros kit, and then we need more money kit, and then we'll see where we're at.
Yeah. By the way, a big shout out, and I don't know which team it was, Brian, but going back to the tournament that your CSC was involved in at the weekend, obviously every CSC has decided on a kit. Some of them just go for, let's buy 11 sets of hoops or whatever, 10 sets of hoops. Other ones are getting quite creative, Brian, and they're having their own strips made up. There was a kit, right? Try and picture this, lads. Remember the West Germany kit from about 1988, and it was a chevron, which was similar to the Dutch kit of Euro 88, and it was green. The West Germany away kit was green, but it was the chevrons, classic Adidas, 3 stripes down the sleeves, big trefoil, right? So one of the supporters clubs had gone and got those jerseys, but instead of a West Germany badge, they had a FC Palestina badge, right? It was absolutely mint. And by the way, I don't know if it's out there for purchase, but it was one of the finest jerseys I've ever seen. I went up to the guy and goes, "You have won the kit of the competition. I don't know if you can play football, but you've won the kit of the comp." And this is another thing, just before we move on, Brian, I'll tell you what, there was a bit of needle in that competition. There was fisticuffs, there was players getting sent off. Yes, it was for charity. Yes, everybody was representing the very ethos of Celtic, but I tell you what, they got stuck in. And what I've said is next year, we'll take a wee Acsom team down. So we're trying to figure out who's who. Liam was telling me yesterday he's a goalie. What about yourself, Brian? Where are we going to put you? Midfield general?
Troublemaker. I'll probably run off the bench and hook somebody. No, just put me in the back. Subs bench will do for me. I'll cheerlead for the sidelines. Although I'll probably need to join the Swindon CSE, so it might be a bit of a double agent. To be fair, it's be conflicted loyalties. Might need to do a half each. Do a half for Acsom, do a half for Swindon.
Like your testimonial, yes,
absolutely. Testimonial, aye.
Get the half and half scarves on the go, aye.
Plus, you always get that in foul. I always like a wee bit of needle in games. I always think it's a bit of healthy aggression, and it needed it's really hurt. It's just a wee bit of handbags, and then we'll move on. But it's good that football should always be competitive, always.
No, you're right. And the thing is, once you're in the eye of the storm, you don't think about, oh, wait a minute, this is a football tournament or whatever. You're just playing a game of football. Patrick, I've heard it said that you speak like Paul McStay. Are you something of a maestro in the midfield?
Oh, no, far from it. Me and Paul went to the same high school, so I suppose that's where that comes from. But no, I'll be part of the Acsom car share, a bit like Bernabe and James McCarthy are part of the Celtic car share. I'll be in the driving seat or the passenger seat. I'll drive the team bus.
Patrick Quan.
Say that again?
You can be Patrick Quan.
100%. 100%. We've got some tremendous comments coming in, but before we go over to you guys, girls and guys, tuning into the show as you always do, some sad news came through to us. You might remember a couple of weeks back, we on This Is Acsom phoned a Celtic supporter called Jim Livingston. We never got into the nitty gritty of what Jim was going through, but he was fighting some serious illness, and I've heard this morning that very sadly he passed away in hospital yesterday afternoon. So I just want everybody out there who knew Jim to know that obviously he's in our thoughts and in our prayers. Jim Livingston is a gentleman. He contacted me many moons ago because I was looking to speak to one of his relatives for one of my books, and he put me in touch with a goalkeeper called Tommy Livingston, who was in and around the Celtic quality street gang. Very highly rated goalkeeper who ended up going to Leicester. So yeah, Jim was a great help for me, and he was a great supporter of Celtic, St Roch's, and he loved a bit of the golf as well. So thoughts and prayers with everyone who knew Jim, and I'm delighted that we were able to give him a wee bit of respite for a second or two when we phoned him on that feature, When a Legend Calls. Thanks everybody for getting involved in the comments section today. I'm going to go straight to Magnet67, who's on the YouTube channel. Are you in the Skylark bar there? That looks as though you're... Where's Lawrence? Is he behind the bar or lying on the couch? Afternoon Acsom team. My mood is one of expected disappointment. Again, hope I'm wrong. Right. There's a few comments like this, and I'm going to bring them up because I'm going to ask you to give it another twist, give it another angle, a different kind of hue on it. And I'm not going to be a bored cheerleader. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate on this. We're going to move on after this to speak about the Celtic survey and feedback and how we, as a football club, can get better in various different aspects. So we will be talking about that. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Frank Brennan, the mood is we have still got so much deadwood to be get rid of. And obviously, it can't all be done in this transfer window, as the task is ginormous, but we must make the most serious of starts. Yeah, I agree with that. I listed the other week 15 players that I think we could lose, and it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to the contribution of the starting 11. And that is bad squad management over a number of transfer windows, and you can't undo it in one transfer window. Totally agree with you, Frank. David Boyle, my mood is frustrated. The gaps in the team were clear all season, so the fact that no new players have arrived is very worrying. And there's a lot of comments coming through just like that. Gordon Coney comes in after an Acsom. My mood is more a sense of deja vu. The recruitment team have known for months where we need to strengthen, yet we go into our first pre-season with no new signings and Scott Bain in goals. We are going to be talking about the starting 11 on Friday night. Now, that seems to be quite a bit of the contributors in the comment section coming through saying that, Brian. Frustration, disappointment, deja vu. What I'm going to say is, right, let's go back to last summer. That was a disastrous transfer window. Would you agree? Disastrous. Absolutely rotten. We followed up a treble, right? Knowing that we were losing star guys like Jota. Carl Starfelt made an appearance under Brendan before he left. Moy had to retire. We knew we really need to strengthen just to stand still. We needed to strengthen just to get back up to the level that we'd had the previous season. And we didn't. We didn't strengthen. I mean, when you look at the players that came in, which of those players strengthened the starting 11? I know that Bernardo made a fine contribution in patches throughout the season. There's a recency bias in that he was involved in the goals. I say goals that either scored, the 3-3 game and the cup final, Brian. But overall, it was a disaster. What if, and I'm playing devil's advocate, we're doing it differently, and that's why there's a delay. What if the players that we're going for are difficult to get? We'll get there, but they're not going to be lined up. There's other clubs involved. There's other options for these players, which would suggest they're a better quality of player. As long as we're able to get the deals done, Brian, and I'm thinking, I said we need 7 or 8 players. I don't think we're going to get 7 or 8 players. What if we get 4 quality players in, and maybe in the last few days, maybe in the final week, we bring in another couple of loans? What if that is what we do, and it's all about being patient? I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, Brian, because a lot of the frustration is shared by a lot of the commenters today.
I mean, I think the problem you've got is that, and Brendan Rodgers kind of alluded to this in January, when we were always expecting a big January window, and he basically said, I could have signed a bunch of players, but I wanted the right players. Mm-hmm. And he got, obviously, Ida and Kuhn sort of became a bit better towards the end, but Ida's obviously been strong. So I see where that point comes from. And the other thing you have to consider, to be fair, is the Euro's been on, because player agents will be desperate if anybody's involved in a tournament to get that tournament out of the way and then start negotiating, because the price will go up, the value will go up if it's a good tournament. So there is that to consider as well. I did say at the start, and I echo with the commenters, we still could have had this done a bit earlier because we knew we needed. So we're not just talking the couple of weeks of this transfer round, it was the months leading into it, where a bit of due diligence could have been done. But look, I think that what pre-season is good for, and Brendan Rodgers has kind of alluded to this, is to see what's ready at the club. Now, in terms of the players we bring in that haven't warranted any sort of game time, but the guys that are already there, like the boy Anderson that was on loan at the Austrian club, by all accounts done really, really well. We do need a left back. I'm not saying he's the answer, but he's going to have a chance here to show, right, okay, what we got to work with. I mentioned at the start as well, Big Wow, good to see what he can do. These guys may actually be able to step in a wee bit, and then what that allows us, to your point, Paul, is you can just get maybe 4 or 5 really experienced guys in, and that might be all you need. I don't think there's any point signing 10 players, because I don't think we need, goalkeeper, centre back, left back, centre mid, and probably a striker. So 5 positions you need filled with quality. The rest of the other positions, could you fill for the existing squad or these players? Maybe, and this is maybe what they want to see as well before they sort of rush in, because it could be the case to say, look, this is your budget, And Rodgers might go, right, I want to spend all that money on this experience, on this quality, and fill the gaps with what we have. So maybe he has to take some time to examine the squad. Could be the case, but if you're going to put a positive spin on it, that's what it would be.
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's not to stand up for the board. If we come out of this transfer window and we're weaker, then it's unacceptable, simply unacceptable. And then I get concerns around the relationship and how fractured that might be between the gaffer and those making the decisions on the budget, and the fact that we don't have a head of recruitment. And that should be in place going into any transfer window, and that's something that we have had time, but we've had plenty of notice for the gardening leave of the departed Lowell and Co. So we knew that was happening. And when we look at the areas of the team that we need to strengthen just to stay as strong as we were at the end of last season, which wasn't strong enough, by the way. I mean, we just did it. I keep saying Brendan Rodgers pulled a rabbit out of the hat, but it wasn't good enough. That's not the level that we can continue at. And if any of those players regress for any reason, be that just age, games, catching up with them, etc. I'm thinking James Forrest here. There might be a few others. Then, we're going to be worse. So we need to strengthen. We can't rest on our laurels. And I'm really, really keen to hear what everybody else thinks about that. Now, Liam Devine, you're right. We did lose Jota and Abada and Starfelt and Moy. And then if you go back into the previous season, we lost Juranovic and we lost Giakoumakis. And if you don't replace those guys with a similar level of quality, you get to the point where the squad definitely does suffer. You go through a couple of bad transfer windows before you know it. The squad's not up to scratch. And then you're talking about getting rid of 15 players, which should never be the case. We should never let it fester as long as that. Stuart Ramsey, surely we can't go into pre-season with Scott Bain as our number one. Well, let's have a wee chat about Friday night then. The predicted 11. We know it's a bounce game. It's basically a training exercise, Patrick. And I don't know what the situation is with Brendan, but I would expect him to be back. He's one of the kind of guys that, even for the St. Roch's game, he jumped on a plane, came back from Spain to be there. He's going to be there. I don't think he would give the manager's chair to John Kennedy, etc. Right, let's talk about the back five. The goalie is Scott Bain because he's the only keeper we've got. So Siegrist is at the building. Hart's retired. It's Scott Bain. Who's on the bench? That's the big question.
It's going to be Oluwayemi, doesn't it? I'm sure he's returned from loan, so
He's back.
I've probably butchered that name, but no, I think it's got to be Oluwayemi. Looking at the rest of the back five, I'm going to struggle for right back here. It will have to be, a youth player that I don't know the name of. But, if Johnson has actually he's just progressed to the next round of Copa America, and Ralston, all the Scotland boys will still be on holiday, I assume. So I've got no idea for right back. Centre half, I'd imagine Scales will be there. I know he played pretty much all season last season, but I don't think, maybe a friendly or two with Ireland, but not played any Euros games. So, him and, CCV, I think, was with the USA squad that have just been knocked out of Copa America. So maybe Welsh partner in Scales. And then, Bernabe's, as you say, on a Brazilian beach somewhere. God knows what he's up to. Taylor will still be on his holidays. So, I'm looking at Mitchell Frame, who came on for half an hour against Feyenoord, who I thought looked really, really positive. I think he actually came on at left wing, but I think he has a left back. So, AN other for right back with Welsh, Scales and Mitchell Frame as your back five.
This is looking sexy already, Brian. I'm going to run through my back five, and before I come to yourself, Brian, Scott Bain, the man who has played more or had more unused substitute appearances for Celtic than anybody else in the history of the club. Prove me wrong. I think he's had 252 unused substitute appearances, but he will be putting his gloves on and using them, I think, on Friday night. The other goalkeepers, you quite rightly said, Oluwayemi's back. He's had a couple of loan deals out, not played the amount of games that he would have liked over Austria and Ireland. He's now 21 years of age. It's at that stage where he's been a promising goalie now for about 4 or 5 years. Is he going to step up? We've also got Josh Clark, Kai McLean. Clark's 19, McLean's 19, and Joe Morrison, who's 20, who I believe has been on the bench previously. So it's going to be Scott Bain. Right back, like you say, Tony Ralston, he's still on his holidays. Alistair Johnson's still involved in the Copa America. It was going to be interesting to watch him play Venezuela in the quarterfinals of that tournament. So who's your right back? And I was a wee bit like yourself, Patrick. I'm thinking, who is the backup to Tony Ralston? And the one player that I'm looking at here is Ben McPherson, 20 years of age. And I'm sure he was involved in the Japanese tour. And then on the back of that, he got himself a loan deal. So yeah, if he's back in the building, unless he's been loaned back out and extended without our knowledge, I would expect him at right back. Centre halves, well, I'm going to look at it slightly differently because Adam Montgomery and Mitchell Frame seem to disappear from view. So I'm not sure what their availability is. I know I saw Montgomery at the training session, and he can play left back. So if he's fit, I would play Montgomery, but I'm not sure what his fitness is. If not, I would play Liam Scales there because according to Brendan Rodgers, he is the backup left back. And if he's playing left back, then your centre half partnership would be Stephen Welsh and Mike Nawrocki. Over to you, Brian. What's your back five?
So I think he might play Josh Clark in goals because he was at Ayr last season. So maybe just a nice wee nod to come back and play. He knows what Bain can do. So he's not going to show me anything, and he's not going to start. Like he's so I don't see the demerit in it. Right back, it probably need to be McPherson. Or is Day still at the club?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm looking at the squads. I'm looking at the squad just now, and he's not listed.
But, maybe he's there, but I remember he played a few times with the B team. It's quite good.
He's listed as a right winger, Josh Dady. He's listed as a right winger, Brian, but I'm guessing he can still play right back.
Yeah, so it'll be one of those two probably. Then it was Stevie Welsh, I would imagine, captain in the side, I suspect. With Dane Murray. Hopefully Dane Murray's back fit.
Just signed a new contract, isn't he?
Yep. He was my pick, I think, when I first joined the podcast in the first pre-season under Ange. And I think the big man's got a future, and he's not been seen since. So I'm clinging on to hope that after nearly 4 years, he'll come good for me. But I think he might play. And then the boy Anderson at left back.
Now, already, if you're tuning in, I think what this exemplifies and what this shows is how wafer thin, actually, for the bloated nature of our squad, how wafer thin we are when it comes to quality. You are dipping into the B team because of a couple of guys being unavailable at right back, for example. You're dipping into the B team for a left back because Taylor's been on international duty. That's not a great situation to be in. If you move into the midfield then, Patrick, who are we playing?
Going solely on availability, I believe Iwata and Tatati, they've not played for Japan over the summer, have they? I don't believe they're in any sort of tournament or yeah. So they're technically available, and then O'Reilly wasn't picked for Denmark. You'd like to think his holidays are over, so you could technically have a midfield of Iwata, O'Reilly, and Hatate. I don't think that's going to happen. McGregor's obviously still on his holidays, and as he does get older, I think he turned 31. A day or two before the Scotland-Germany game or something. So we'll need to manage his games, going forward. I think you could see guys like Daniel Kelly and Odin Thiago Holm and, a few more youngsters. Maybe see, players like Hatate and O'Reilly, play 60 minutes or something or a half. But I'll go with Hatate, Holm and Kelly for my midfield, I think.
That's a decent midfield. But this is the thing, Brian. If you were to pick the strongest players that are available, it would be the first trio that Patrick mentioned there. Would they risk the likes of O'Reilly, Hatate? I'm not so sure. But I'm just going to run with the strongest team. I'm going to go with Iwata, Hatate, O'Reilly, and have the likes of Kwon and Holm, Kelly on the bench. So that shows you that we do have a bit of depth in the midfield area, at least, Brian.
Is Kelly still? Has he not been a free agent now? Kelly, same as Wata.
Let me check that actually because I know I
at the clubs and his contract was running out, but I would Wata, Home in Lowell would be my midfield three. Because I'd like to see Big Lowell. I think he'll play most of the pre-season to see if he can contribute. Home is not doing anything else, I believe, unless he's back home. He'll be the training.
And, you like Big Lowell, don't you? You think he's a
fancy him. I think he's going to do well. I think
Prospect.
I actually liked him at centre back, but I'd watched him a few times at Fleetwood, and he looked really good, big, strong, powerful. And to go back to my earlier comment about we're losing Matt O'Reilly, I'm not suggesting he can fill those boots in terms of technique, but certainly just give you that extra bit of running, that bit of power, and that physicality in midfield for the last stages of the season. I think would be really strong. So that'd be my midfield three.
No, I think it's worthwhile mentioning Lowell, because if we're going to use a loan system, Brian, and they go out and they're a success on loan, the next question is, what's the pathway? Did they get loaned out again? Did they come back in? Did they get a pre-season so that the gaffer can assess whether or not he's ready to make the step up? But you start mentioning names like Home, £2.5 million this time last year. We're talking about becoming frustrated. We could go out and sign a Home right now. We could sign a player right now if we wanted, but you're left a year down the line with these guys having played a handful of games, not really contributed positively over the double that we've won. So I'm trying to hold on to that as my positive crux. Now, if we look at the wingers, then Maeda's out because he's been on international duty. Who do we play on the wings, right? Because it's one of these things on This Is Acsom. I've had a couple of wingers on the show, and we keep asking them, what's the problem with our wingers? Do you play somebody like Kuhn, who was obviously filmed at the training? Give him games. He's the type of guy I'm looking forward to seeing this season. Do you play Palma on the left? Because if not, then you're maybe dropping down to the likes of, by the way, Kelly's contract runs until the end of the year, Brian. It's a 31st of December one, apparently. So he might play. Rocco Vata's not been at training. He's out of contract. So who do you play on the wings? Patrick, I'll start with you.
I mean, it really is. It depends what the manager wants to go for. But if you are going with the strongest team, I think you are looking at Kuhn, Kyogo, and Palmer, which would be a bit of a shame for the United defenders for first game of the season. But I mean, if you're going with the strongest team, it has to be that. Obviously, you get guys like Yang in there as well. I believe Vata is away now. I think he's having a medical today with Watford, so you can no longer consider him. But you obviously get young players in there as well. I said, Mitchell Frame earlier. If he's not playing left back, he might be playing left wing. I don't know. But if you're going with your strongest team, which I think I will do, I would go with Kuhn, Palm, and Kyogo, and then maybe switch it out at half time. Bring guys like Joey Dawson on for the second half up top.
What about Mikey Johnson? We're back in that saloon, right? Of the seventh last chance for Mikey since once we started Acsom back in 2017. Every single pre-season, is this the one that Mikey Johnson's going to shine? Is he going to fulfil his potential? And you're not even playing him against Ayr United, Patrick. What's going on?
He's going to shine for West Brom in pre-season. That's my prediction. After we secure $8 million from him in the transfer market, I think he'll have a great season down in the Championship.
Going back to Brian's point that he made, if we're going to be serious about this game, we do have to demand what is the going rate for someone in the top 5 of the Championship, because that's where Mikey was playing last season. He'd done really, really well. So let's start the bidding at X million. Let's not undersell ourselves. Brian, your top 3. Do you go strong? I would go strong. I'd go Kuhn, Kyogo, and Palma.
I'd go Kuhn, Dawson, and Frame. That was going to be my pick. Just because or maybe Yang could maybe come on. But I just think pre-season, especially at this stage of pre-season, and no disrespect to Ayr, but against Ayr, these guys have been in training, whether they've been on holiday or at the Euros or whatever, or playing internationally. And I think this is where you go, is there anything here that stands out that we think we're not sure about? Are they going to go on loan? Are they going to stay and get a try? And I think you're going to see a lot of these guys, but you have that bit of experience. So like Kuhn, you want him to get up to speed, fitness, see if he's bulked out any, just to have a wee bit of balance. So I think you see mostly the younger players, again, just for the sake of seeing, is there anybody here? And I just seen a few of the people in the comments getting themselves in a twisted knot because I thought Law was going to be a player. Suddenly said, well, he's not good enough. Neither that plays for Fleetwood could be good enough. A, I think he was a player of the season. B, he was on loan. C, he's 20. D, Matt O'Reilly came from MK Dons. And if you remember, Callum McGregor was at Notts County. So let's all relax and just give the boy a chance, because the same people are getting upset would also flap and bump their gums that we're not playing youth players. So pick a line, give the boy a chance, see how he gets on. If he's not good enough, Brendan will know and ship him back out. If he is, we've won a watch, might save yourself a few million quid. They can go to a more experienced player. It's pre-season against everybody. Just relax. Is my message.
Just relax. Listen, he was on my loaned out list. I had 5 players on the loaned out list. He was on it. And my thinking behind that, Brian, was right, he's done it championship level. No, he's done it at League One level. Let's see if he can step it up. Find him a loan deal at a higher level than that, because he absolutely bossed it at Fleetwood. You know, he was sensational down there. So see if he can step up. However, only after a pre-season. Let the gaffer look at him during the pre-season games and at training. And if he feels, wait a minute, he's going to be more of a contributing player than a few of the other guys who last season we were looking at, then you're right, play him, because there has to be a pathway. And if you're going out on loan for a season, you need to know that if I perform, I'm going to be rewarded. That reward is either you come back into the fold at Celtic or you get a better loan deal following that, and it's part of that progression. No progression would just be a nightmare for a player like that.
Well, look at Vata, for example. Like he's not played any games for us, so he's not a great loss that he's away. But the point being, he could go and have a great career, and then we'd be saying, why not just give him a chance? We were going bonkers because our wingers weren't performing this season, and we didn't play the young guy in. So it's like, I just don't think you can have that mentality of, oh, these guys are in the Celtic class. And it's like, well, they're 19, 20. If you're signing guys that Celtic class at that age, you're not going to be able to afford them. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't have it both ways. You either need to say, we'll give a couple of younger guys a chance and see how they get on, or just don't ever play the academy players and only sign the experienced players. But I just think it's such a weird attitude to sort of demand, in one hand, that we produce good players and produce their own players, and the other hand, no one to play them. Mm-hmm. It's just you can't do both. You need to pick, and I think obviously it's all about balance. But I suspect this season you see more of that. Brendan actually from last season talked about it a lot, and he never really done it too much last season. Kelly and Frame aside, so he's been pretty clear that's what he wants, and obviously whether you like the appointment, Darren O'Day's pathway manager shows there is an intent there. So I suspect whether we like it or no, you're going to see these players. I think it's a good thing. And look, there's no point in like the Montgomery thing's weird because I don't think he's going to. He's at 3 or 4 loans now. He's never really excelled at any of the clubs. It feels strange to me that he's back with a new contract, and that seems a bit funny to me, especially because I think he's 22 now as well. But again, there must be something there that we're not seeing.
Mm-hmm. I think a wee bit unlucky with injuries, Montgomery, and where's he been? Motherwell, St George's and Aberdeen. The St Johnstone deal was probably his best one, going by Stuart Cosgrove actually speaking about him. He would have given him the Young Player of the Year that year, but you're right, it seems to have been a stop-start process for Montgomery, and it wouldn't surprise me if he was surplus to requirements, but we shall see. Now, there's loads of good comments coming through. We've got Michael Ross Kelly looks a player. Why is he not being offered a better contract? Listen, this is just me. I might be completely wrong, Michael, but I'm looking at him and Vata both coming through. They're the next two coming through, and a lot of the focus has been on Rocco Vata. Once that finishes, and the suggestion is it might happen today or tomorrow, and he'll join Watford, I think what you'll then see is a situation where Kelly will become the main focus. I don't think that's fair. I think he's been probably wanting to speak to Celtic for a while now. There was mention that the board have dragged their heels on it. I would be gutted to lose them both. I'm resigned to the fact that Rocco's leaving. To lose them both will be a tough one, but it feeds right into what Brian said there. You need to show these young guys that there is some kind of path. AGSC Tech, thank you for supporting a Celtic state of mind. You support us just by watching the channel, sharing the videos, following us on social media, giving us the thumbs up. And if you fancy coming along to a show, you can do that as well. Always great fun. There's Kevin Graham. You'll be seeing him at some point this week and next. This is Parkhead Boy with a suggestion for a slogan for my new t-shirt. Absolutely no need to panic. Believe. Absolutely. Am I a cheerleader? Am I sounding like a bit of a cheerleader? Let us know in the comments. No vision, no signings. Stephen Barclay. Well, the big thing about vision was the club finally engaged and asked us for some kind of feedback. And you can't moan about it really, because we've been banging a drum about this for long enough. Patrick, what did you make it? What's the big changes you want to see at Celtic? We've got hundreds of money. What would you like to do with it?
we do have hundreds of money. I'd like to see. I mean, obviously, the immediate concern is these. I think we need 5 or 6 first-team players to compete at the level that we all want to be at. We want to have that 8 or 9 point group stage campaign in the Champions League so that we can get the 24th place, so that we can play the extra 2 games in January, and then you'll have 10, Champions League matches, all the TV money, all the match day income, the ticket sales, the coefficient points. I think that is the immediate concern for just about everyone involved. Beyond that, we've got a league to win. You've also got the 2 cups that you want to do well in, and you're going to have a playoff game should we win the league to get into the Champions League again next season. So I think we need, 5 or 6 players to achieve those 3 goals. Beyond that, I think we've obviously got Barrowfield at the moment. That should, maybe take another 6 months to a year. Beyond that, I think we're really, really missing a trick, and I think you've seen it in German football for years and years now, and you're seeing it at the Euros. You can have fan zones outside Celtic Park. I mean, there's plenty of space either side of the Lisbon Lions and the Jock Stein stands. The Celtic way is wonderful, and it's brilliant that they've done it, but that happened 10 years ago now, and there seems to be no appetite or ambition to extend that. I know you've got car parks at both sides of the ground, and you obviously need to maintain that, but even then, there's still plenty of space. And even if you looked at a sort of Murrayfield type layout, you could have turnstiles actually before the ground starts. So you go through the turnstile and the fan zone is behind a turnstile. I went to a game in Dusseldorf 6 years ago and they'd done the same thing there. So I think a fan zone would be a brilliant addition. I hope we aim to redevelop the main stand at some point. Even if we're not adding capacity, it is a bit of a tight squeeze and a bit of a maze inside. I've heard, I've only sat in it twice, but I've heard, you've got food stalls right next to toilets and stuff like that. So I think if we're really wanting to be a world-class football club, there's the option to, either renovate it or extend the capacity and bring in even more money year on year, because as Alan Morrison talks about all the time, you've got a 10,000 seat advantage over Rangers every season. I think at the moment that advantage actually stands at 30,000 with the way that the renovations are going, but we'll not go into that.
I was going to ask, where
So,
are you getting the steel? Where are you getting the steel for this main stand, Patrick?
Apparently, there's plenty of Scottish steel providers. I think Rangers might have been owned by one in the past, but who knows? No, I'd like to see a redevelopment of the main stand. I think it's a crime, to be honest, that we don't have a museum of some kind. Obviously we've had great additions. We've obviously got the tour, one of the biggest attractions in the world, apparently. We've got a decent superstore. I think the ticket office is a bit of a shambles. That's been a porta cabin ever since we knocked the school down. I think that could be incorporated into some sort of museum as well. So there's plenty of infrastructure projects, and there's also the 5 or 6 players we need on the park. But I think the most important thing is to invest it in something. I know we need a buffer of, maybe 10, 20 million quid. But beyond that, you need to invest money. There's no point in sitting with 50 million in cash in the bank. It serves you absolutely no use at all. So investing the money in something and making sure it's a good investment. And I'd like to think a fan zone isn't that expensive and isn't that difficult to work out. So I think that's one of the first things off the park I'd like to see happen.
Great suggestions, Patrick. I mean, you share a lot of my views there. And things like ticketing, the ticket swapping scheme, all that kind of stuff. Fan engagement has to happen, and it has to happen on a regular basis. Looking after overseas fans, Brian, these people who are not within a radius of Celtic Park and can watch the team, but they're still supporters of the club. They could still be involved in some way. We talk about our friends in Japan and New Zealand and Australia who are involved in a Celtic state of mind, and they always talk about that to try and feel closer to the club. Is there an annual membership? Can the media side of things with Celtic TV be improved? There's all that stuff. But initially, and as Patrick says, you want to sort the team out first and foremost, and then you can look at the medium and the long-term projects after that, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of disagree with what Patrick said there. I think you and I spoke about it privately before, Paul, but I think a sort of Netflix style Celtic TV model would be good, where you've got a real back catalogue, all the Celtic content, all the old games, digitised versions of the videos you've got behind you. I think that is a subscription service would be excellent for people. You can also have the pay-per-view for games as well. So I think there's easy wins like that. I mean, the content's there. It's easy money, and I think it'd be good for, to your point, maybe people that aren't close to the club physically can get a bit more sort of ingrained in it. But yeah, there's so many things we can do, and I know people have been really cynical about the survey, and I get it, but they didn't need to do it, and I think that's something to remember, is the fact that they've ignored us for years. So it known as again wouldn't have made much of a difference. But actually going out with a survey, and it looked like there was quite tailored questions where you can sort of see where they're probably going to go. So I think that was quite interesting. Like, any engagement is a bit of improvement on previous no engagement. So I can't be too critical, to be fair.
No, you're right. We welcome it. We've been banging on about it. So, it's a good start, I think. Seamus McKenna comes in with some feedback. Good initiative by Celtic, says Seamus. I requested a ticket resale scheme, more involvement of Celtic podcasts and supporters clubs on the Celtic social media platforms, outside museum around Celtic Park. The thing is, once all these are collated, there's going to be some sensational ideas. I do believe that the answer and the solution to just about anything's within the fan base. We've all got different ideas, but the answer is within the fan base. So that's why I think this is a positive move. Move Celtic's Belfast store to Kennedy Centre in Andytown. There's some real specifics that guys like us would never know about. So to have that view from across the globe, I think is important. Ticket priority for overseas supporters clubs when Celtic play in their country. Supporter club registration with club and their members. Great suggestions. Thanks very much. Thanks, Feed the Bear, for supporting us, as always, on the YouTube channel as well. It's great to hear from you. And Joe Hamilton, final comment of today. This window will determine the long-term vision of Celtic Football Club. We will know soon if Dermot Desmond and the board want our club to make progress or not. I think that's a fine final word by Joe Hamilton. Quite see, that's been a really quick one there. Didn't think that much was happening because we've not kicked the ball in anger and we've not signed a player. But there's always an hour's worth of Celtic discussion to go around. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. You might see on the bottom of the ticker, Joe Ledley. I've been wanting to get Joe Ledley up for a live event for a long time. He's going to join us for a couple of nights. The first one's in Gracie's on the 26th. He's then going to go to Caesars in Grangemouth on the 27th and be joined by Charlie Mulgrew. Tickets underneath this video. All that's left for me to say thanks, everybody, for getting involved. It's always appreciated. And thank you to Brian Degnan and Patrick McGill for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.